Again, just to give you an idea of the last 50 years of Port Corporation tonnage, even though you see the last 2 years were significant declines in cargo throughput, if you still look at the last 6 years, it's a growth rate of 3%. If you remember what we talked about, the growth rate forecasting and doubling, that was 2.8%. So that even though we're going through a very, very difficult time that economists can tell you all about, the forecasts, we believe, are conservative over the long haul for Paulsboro. So we want to handle more commodities on the Delaware River. Why? This graphic indicates to you the available acreage north of Cape May in order to handle additional commodities. There isn't any. I don't think that doesn't take anyone by surprise if you look at the urban density issues of the larger cities up north. The Delaware River, particularly Gloucester County, Salem County, we have acreage that we can redevelop, effectively handling port development quantities. The different stars represent, in this particular case, Camden, Paulsboro, and then a couple of other potential facilities that different people in the last 2 years have identified, as well as when we went through our environmental process, we had to look at alternative sites. So as to what those alternative sites were, and ultimately Paulsboro is selected for a number of reasons we're going to get to. But those dots are industrial parks in southern New Jersey. Part of what the Port of Paulsboro wants to do is furnish these existing businesses. Okay, that was the 25% of rationale why. Why Paulsboro? Again, this graphic is on the back, so I don't want to take too much time, but it's the old real estate advantage put into a port use, location, location, location. The first graphic that we had, which is in that far corner, showed you Paulsboro, and when you go back and look at it, you'll see it's all white. What that graphic does is shows you where the existing navigation channel is. The river naturally bends in Paulsboro. Therefore, from a waterside perspective, you don't have far to go to get into deep water. Minimizes costs, both first cost for dredging, but also because of the bend of the river, it minimizes long-term maintenance costs. So if you're, again, what do you try and do when you build your house? You try and build it in a way that you don't have a lot of long-term maintenance. Second, location. There's an existing community adjacent to this site, previously worked at that site. We want to reintroduce an opportunity where people can again walk from their job back, or walk from their job home and vice versa in the morning, while we also build the region. And lastly, the environment. One of the big keys from the state policy, but also just smart business, is to reuse and redevelopment what we've had. In this particular case, a port facility that basically encapsulates previous areas makes a lot of sense from a remediation followed by redevelopment process. And in so doing, we don't have a greenfield development that significantly impacts intertidal or wetland areas. Those are all the technical issues to why. Now the real reason, I think, for why you want to focus on port development to enhance the opportunity to grab the international cargo base. At the end of the day, the port facilities are highly technical, significant pieces of equipment. Those cranes that you see on the side of the river, if you're ever boating by, are $8 to $10 million a pop. Expensive equipment, but at the end of the day, they create the right kind of jobs. As you can see behind me, not only construction, but mostly an industrial park that happens to be alongside the water. And when your cargo is consisting of an international source, you must have a way to get it off the ship, onto the land, and back off to the ship. That's what a marine terminal does. And at the end of the day, that business is what creates the job, which creates the taxes, not only from the business side, but also the government labor side. We've come a long way since the late 1700s. Mantua Creek looks significantly different, and the density of Paulsboro was a little different. The late 1800s, a year later, Mantua Creek still looks about the same, but the urban core of Paulsboro was now created. I would also show you an interesting aspect is Mantua Ave has been there, probably you know, but from the 1700s. what we looked like in the late 1990s. I'm sorry, the light, I don't know, kind of late, but we could always maybe turn down the font, but if not, the graphics are behind you. 1996 was the time frame that BP ceased operations. Ethics Chemical had ceased operations in the early part of the 1990s, approximately 1993. Ultimately, what we're talking about is a roughly 200-acre parcel to accommodate the marine terminal, plus additional acreage to accommodate what we call the overpass, which is the access road and bridge. It consists of a number of parcels, as you can see. Primarily BP, the 45 and the 15 is just to give everyone an idea, the 15-acre landfill currently is not part of the terminal planning when you look at the graphics, simply because of the closed landfill. DEP would like to see it that way, unless we get into a specific program of what its reuse would be. And lastly, Paulsboro packaging. Terminal access, major issue for a port facility. As you can see on the bottom of that screen, has the ability from original forecasts to handle or require 700 vehicles an hour, 7,000 vehicles per day. Significant issues associated with ports is the roadway connections and the rail connections. A number of different alternatives were looked at in order to get back either exit 18 or exit 19. The primary truck route, as you can see by the graphics, has between a 40-foot wide roadway bed down to a 28-foot wide roadway bed. The Port Corporation, in order to handle effective cargo movements, has trucks that are 15 feet wide. They are not roadworthy trucks, but those kind of trucks are trying to generate the same thing you know from Walmart, which is cost efficiencies. Even then, if you have two 12-foot trucks running by, two 12-foot trucks, which could be roadworthy, you don't have room for the cars along the side that are parked. So we do have a truck route, but that truck route would require taking all the property on one side of the road or the other. That's anywhere from 70 to 140 properties. That doesn't make good public or business sense from a cost standpoint. From a rail standpoint, existing rail infrastructure that you see, and we'll get back to more of the alternatives on the road. Gives you an idea that what the port's planning based on existing or previous use at their Beckett and Broad Street terminals is somewhere around 10 to 15 cars a day. Existing rail movements are 2 to 3 trains a day, morning, and 2 to 3 in the evening at 80 to 90 car train consists. So that you can see from a port perspective, while they're aiming for 5 or 10% use of rail, the volume is less than probably 100 or a train every third day or thereabouts. This graphic also is in the back, so I won't go through it to a great degree. But one of the benefits of using the Port of Paulsboro or reusing the previous BP Ethics Chemical site is that you have existing infrastructure that you'll connect to, as well as the adjacent sewage system for the GCUA. All of that's done in a way of minimizing the upfront capital cost that at the end of the day, the South Jersey Port Corporation refunds through its tariffs to handle that commodity and thus repays what you would call revenue bonds. There's a debt service payment that they have to show the ability through their leases and their cargo tenant throughput cargoes, how they're going to pay that debt service back.